People are reacting to the arguments that are going on, and some of them will literally make their mind up. A bit like me voting SNP in 1983, they'll just suddenly have this sort of in the ballot box with a pen in their hand. They'll just suddenly think, wait a minute,
Yeah, and,
But,
if we can just move on to the last topic, because I believe you've been a long time member of CND, and I did speak to someone from CND Scotland a while back, it had been almost a year ago now, and I know that CND Scotland have decided to support independence, although their vote wasn't by any means unanimous, I heard as well. But why did, if we can just go over it, because it was quite a long time ago, that episode.
when I first got involved in the sort of very early 80s, it was the idea that a unilateralist is a multilateralist who means it. Because we had politicians saying, oh, I believe we shouldn't have these weapons. We believe in multilateral disarmament, while at the same time ordering the first round of Trident. So that was, well, if Britain gets rid of it first, then that is the first step. Now, I can remember, ironically, Alistair Darling in the 80s used to speak at CND meetings. He used to speak at demos, quite the young firebrand. And it was morally important. It was financially inexcusable at a time when we were being told we all had to tighten our belts in the 1980s, that all this money was going on it, that we should never use it. But then, of course, the argument that we should never use it was then taken on by multilateralists and people who were defending it by saying, well, of course we wouldn't use it. But the fact that it's there means that nobody's going to attack us. So as I say, that then became the phrase, a unilateralist is a multilateralist who means it. So I think really Scottish CND were in a situation where here is a party and here is Civic Scotland, all of whom want to get rid of these weapons. And here is the potential, genuinely, to get rid of them. So I think for a lot of them, because a lot of them, I mean, when I was in CND, when I first joined it, it was like the sort of secretary of the local CND was the chair of the local Labour Party. As I say, this was the early 80s, So I think a lot of them had their loyalties tested as to where the vote was actually going to go. But ultimately, if you really seriously believe that you're going to get rid of these weapons, you have to support not a party, but you have to support a process that offers a real possibility of that. So it could only be right that Scottish CND supported it. I think that was the thinking that a lot of people, and remember, there's always been a big body, even within the Scottish Labour Party, within the Labour Party all over Britain, that still supported those Michael Foot ideals from the 1980s, who did want to see the back of Trident. And now, when we're going to be spending money either buying a newer super duper Trident or refurbishing the old one, now's the time to make the decision. And that came to logic as well. And again, it kind of reconfirmed my views on, that you get Labour politicians at these debates saying, well, of course we support getting rid of these weapons, just not now. So,
Of course, we support union policy, but we just can't get it
exactly,
through now. And
yeah,
of
that's it.
course,
But
we
they have,
support home rule, but not yet. Although
exactly.
although that was 1997, of course, Labour will say it was them, but it was Tony Blair did it with, to borrow a phrase, although I can't remember where it was from, because he was doing it holding his nose. He was only doing it with one hand. Um,
Yeah. And the fact that the MSPs ended up swearing allegiance to the monarch, something no Scottish Parliament ever did. Scottish Parliament's always swore allegiance to the people, like prior to 1707. Now, it wasn't a very democratic institution, the Scottish Parliament in 1707, but to think that he was forcing them to swear allegiance to the monarch when their predecessors had never done it just shows, how far. And actually went out his way to say it would have less power than a parish council. I actually thought when I voted for the Scottish Parliament, I was voting for Devo Max because the original John Smith proposal had been that Scotland would keep all the taxes raised in Scotland. I didn't realise until it was Blair and Brown that decided that they would just continue with the block grant. So when I went out and voted in 1998 for it, I actually thought that it was Devo Max that I was voting for. So just shows you when you take your eye off the ball.
you
Um,
mean Blair did something deceptive? I
I
don't
know, I
believe it.
know. It is. It's that silence there. Obviously, you fainting and being brought round again. Yeah, I know, but it just beggars belief. But again, it was that feeling in sort of civic Scotland, if we can call it that. And I think the nuclear disarmament belief had never gone away. And it was all of those same. I mean, if you remember the first Gulf War, even, you had Church of Scotland ministers, you had Archbishop Winning, Cardinal Winning, as he was then, on platforms against the Gulf War, as well as all the usual suspects on the left of the political party. So I think that those beliefs were sort of deeply ingrained in people, and they hadn't gone away. They might have become unfashionable in Westminster circles or, among the mainstream media in London, but they hadn't actually gone away anywhere. And it still comes down to choices. What are you going to spend your money on? And it's not even a defence. I mean, the world has moved on. We're in the 21st century. Nobody's going to nuke us unless it's somebody we've sold the weapons to in the first place, So they already know they're spending billions on weapons of mass destruction. And in the repeated wars that Westminster's getting us involved in, soldiers on the ground have barely got enough weaponry. Now, I'm no great believer in wars anyway, to be honest with you, but a defence force is quite a different thing from an occupying army in another country. So that's where the money should be going. The defence budget could be cut radically, and we could have fewer, better weapons, even when they were developing. Now, there was a documentary series, I think it was called The Defence of the Realm in the 80s, and it was these super duper huge planes that were being outperformed by the wee nippier ones, because the big ones were run by computer, which kept seizing up. They were too big for the pilots to be able to move. And the older generation of planes, which were smaller and which were controlled by the men at the controls, were actually able to outperform them whenever they did simulations. So, bigger is not always better in the defence field.
But it was
guerrilla army can tell you.
But wasn't it mission accomplished? Lots of their friends, their contractors, got quite rich about it. And this is the corruption of the Westminster system, I think. But
yeah, absolutely.
Can I just say thanks, Anne? That's been brilliant. You've given us lots of new reasons for voting yes, I think, in that, and that's been really enjoyable as well. Thanks for coming on, Anne. That's been great.
Oh, thanks very much, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Right, take care. Bye.
So there you have it. I thought Anne was excellent. And do you remember at the start of the campaign when a couple of people said if we just convince one person, then it'll be an easy victory in the referendum? Well, if you've been enjoying these podcasts so far, then why don't you just tell one person about them and we can help to get the message to more people. We'll be back with For All That at the weekend, and as usual on the podcast, the guest gets to choose the tune, and this is what Anne chose. So I'll speak to you next time.
to shock.